Hi everyone. Got myself, Chris, and you've got Renata here as your hosts.
Yeah, welcome to our introductory webinar to our course NCFE Introduction to Neuroscience for Early Years Practitioner.
So as you all know, this is our introductory webinar. So it's the webinar where we're going to share information about our neuroscience course. So in terms of what we want to get done today, we're going to focus on our school, just give you an oversight of the school itself. Then we'll dive into the course, we'll look at the course aims. We'll have a brief talk about why neuroscience is important. Then we'll look further into the course, give an overview of the course itself, have a look at the course structure and content. We'll dip into a little bit of the content just to give you a flavour, and then we'll look at the upcoming dates and then over to you for any kind of questions. So that's the kind of agenda that we've got. So if we start off with the school itself. So in terms of the school, we've been around for 8 years, coming up to 9 years, and the school was set up to meet the need of various people, various professionals that work with young children in order to improve their knowledge and skills, and thereby providing a better service in terms of their kind of child-based career, and on top of that, develop personally. And all of that is really just, we value the childcare profession and that as a career, and we feel that we can provide good career progression for these people and ultimately greater fulfillment. So that's the kind of our reason for being in terms of school and what we aim to achieve. In terms of the people who actually provide the training, we always look for trainers who are good at teaching, so they have some kind of teaching skills, whether it's professional or whether it's learned. But also a key feature is that we focus on people who are actually practitioners, have been practitioners themselves. So they know not only the knowledge to share in terms of the subjects they teach, but also they've been there and done it, so they really know sort of first-hand experience of what they're teaching. Okay, and in terms of what we offer at the moment, so we break this down into our what we call foundation pathways. We've got 4 of these. So we cover the CACHE Early Years Practitioner. We also do the sleep practitioner, we do non-medical maternity nurse, and then we've got this neuroscience course as well. So they're kind of foundation courses, they're lengthier courses, and provide you with some concrete qualifications that will help in the early years practice. And then to supplement that, we've got various workshops and short courses. So they give you additional knowledge in terms of the area that you're working in, and so you can think of them as sort of continual professional development. And they are classed in, we've got 2 categories. So we've got things focused around behavior, and we've got things focused out around nutrition. So behavior might be around behavior management or emotional intelligence. And nutrition, we cover things like starting solids, fussy eating, and we've got quite a good course on reflux, colic, and food sensitivities. So those kind of things. And then the third category of what we do, we've got what we call essential knowledge and services. So these are things like the common core skills that are necessary for certain roles. We also host paediatric first aid pretty much on a weekly basis at venues in London. And we also do some DBS checking as well. So they're the essential stuff that we do. Okay, so in terms of this course, this is the NCFE Introduction to Neuroscience for the Early Years Practitioner Level 2. That's the kind of official title. So it's accredited by NCFE or CACHE. The Level 2 award is what's known as knowledge only. So there's no requirement for any work-based practice or assessment. And we've got here an aim and objectives. This comes from the NCFE syllabus about this course. So it's kind of high level, but it gives you an understanding of what NCFE are trying to achieve. So the aim is to prepare students to work with children from birth to 7 years old through the study of neuroscience in the early years. That's one takeaway, is it is quite a specific time frame of birth to 7 years old that this focuses on. And in terms of the objectives, So supporting learners to gain an understanding in neuroscience in early years, supporting learners to progress to further and higher education, and to support the practitioner role in the workplace. So those objectives, again, this is kind of slightly high level in terms of what NCFE are trying to achieve, but it gives you an understanding of what the course is trying to provide. Okay, so in terms of why neuroscience, maybe I should start off with what is neuroscience. No doubt everyone on here has got some kind of interest in neuroscience, hence you joining. But in terms of what neuroscience is, so fundamentally, neuroscience is a study of the nervous system, and predominantly it's the brain. So we've got nerves running throughout our body, and we've got the peripheral nerves, so going throughout our body to our various muscles in our limbs and those kind of things. And then we've got what's called the central nervous system, so that's made up of the brain and the spinal cord. And the reason why I say neuroscience is predominantly around the brain is because if we look at the nerves, the peripheral nerves, we've got hundreds of those, but then when we look at the brain, it's in the order of 86 billion. So a massive order of magnitude greater amount of cells in our brain versus the nerves throughout our body. So yeah, so that kind of, in a nutshell, is what neuroscience is. But in terms of neuroscience, it's a broad term that covers all sorts of things, from things like neurosurgery all the way to developmental neuroscience and various things in between. And so when we look at this course in terms of early years development, neuroscience in the early years, it's very much around sort of the behavioral, cognitive, and developmental neuroscience that we're focusing on. So in terms of why neuroscience, when we look at how this course is presented, we're not getting into sort of advanced scientific content. So you will learn aspects of the brain, you will learn some basics in terms of how things work in the brain, but you're not, this course is certainly not trying to get you to have some advanced neuroscience level understanding of the anatomy and the mechanisms that go on in the brain. It's giving you that kind of fundamental understanding of what's going on to then help you to, when we get into how the brain develops in children and the different things that are going on, you've got some context to put it in terms of what's actually happening in the brain and the cells between. And one of the reasons why neuroscience is becoming important is because in the last 20 or 30 years, the amount of research that's gone on, we now have so much more understanding of the brain itself, what happens, and also the changes that are happening all the way from soon after conception, throughout gestation, and in those first few years. The brain is really growing very rapidly. And so those years are really formative and critical, a kind of sensitive period. So again, if we talk about why neuroscience, we know that the brain development is that at its most rapid, and it's that formative period, sensitive time. And by understanding some of the developmental neuroscience, it helps to explain how children are thinking at different stages of this development. With this knowledge, it really helps the early years practitioner to fine-tune their skills, and that they'll be aware that different children at different ages will be at different stages of that kind of brain development and what they're able and not able to do yet. And so this is really crucial to any early years practitioner. So it's a really valuable course. So what we're going to look at now is an overview of the course. So we've got 2 mandatory units, and mandatory, so it's split into these 2 units, both need to be completed. So the first unit is understanding neuroscience in the early years. And the second unit is understanding self-regulation and how to nurture this in children from birth to 7 years. So looking into those two units, we've broken down those units into 3 modules each. So the first unit, we've got the first module is the introduction to neuroscience. That's followed by neural physiology, and then we look at social development of the brain. Then the second unit, we look at child regulation. We also look at special needs and how things differ in that. And then we look at nurturing positive behavior. And how we've structured the course is those 6 modules across the 2 units. We've split those into 10 sessions. So we split it across 10 weeks, 1 session per week. And each session comes with assignments. So that helps to take the information you're learning and to then cement that knowledge, consolidate it by going through some assignments and demonstrating your knowledge, basically. And that's a requirement for the NCFE qualification, that you can demonstrate your knowledge. In terms of how much time we're expecting, it's about 6 hours per week, give or take. So that's the kind of commitment we're looking at if you're to do this course. Okay, so if we go into the units in a bit more detail. So here we've got unit 1. In terms of the subject column, as I said, we've got those 3: introduction to neuroscience, neurophysiology, and social development of the brain. And if I talk about what that covers, so this unit 1 it's more around the kind of biological aspects of neuroscience. So we start off just with that kind of introduction. We look a bit about the history of not just neuroscience, but also what kind of preceded neuroscience in terms of developmental side of things. So the behavioral theory that stemmed in the sort of 20th century. There were a number of people involved in bringing this forward, and that helped us to understand behaviors of people. And it wasn't until we delved more into the neuroscience that we could actually explain why things are going on and fill various holes and gaps that we had through the behavioral theory side of things. As well as that kind of introduction to neuroscience, we then look into the brain itself at a high level. The brain is, as time goes on, we add more and more knowledge to the different areas of the brain, and we don't need to know the brain in that much detail. We just go through the main regions of the brain, and especially the limbic system. If anybody's heard of the limbic system, that's an area that we also look at, which is deep in the brain. But that's we kind of pause in terms of going into any more detail of the brain, because we don't want to we don't need to get into kind of a higher level of anatomy on that side of things. We also look at baby brain development. So that is both prenatally, how the brain develops in the womb, and also what happens after birth and those first few years. So I think in the first 3 years, there's potentially about 90% of growth happening in those first 3 years in terms of the brain volume. Obviously, there's a lot, in terms of from embryo, the whole brain structure is developing in gestation. So there's a massive amount of development there as well. So we go into that and we understand the key time points throughout those first few years, what's happening in the brain. Then we look at the second module. It's all about neural physiology. So this is really probably the most biological part of this whole course. So we look at the neurons and the synapses. Neurons are the nerve cells, and the synapses are the connections between nerve cells. We look at the high-level anatomy of what they look like, the key features, and how those synapses work. And then once we've done that, we then look into the social development of the brain. And so there's a concept of mirror neuron system where there's a kind of imitation that happens and triggers responses in the brain, and that's kind of part of that foundation learning of children, where they use this system to help them develop in what we call social cognition. And the social brain is how we define that and how we look at that. And so that covers things like language, theory of mind. So theory of mind, I don't know if has anybody heard of theory of mind?
What is the experiment called? The names of the dollies? Anne and
yeah.
Anne and Jane?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But there's a classic experiment to show theory of mind. So this is kind of a theory of mind is something that happens in about sort of 3 years, I think, and it's where a child or an individual is able to conceptualize that that child can have a different perspective to another person, and that only develops after a certain amount of time. So again, this kind of understanding of neuroscience, understanding the development and the different time points in those first few years helps the childcare professional and the early years worker to know that this is something that may be a factor in terms of their dealing with children in their care. So yeah, it's quite fascinating. That especially that theory of mind always fascinates me. Okay, so that's unit 1, and I think we've got a video now. So very brief video. It kind of helps just give you a flavour of the kind of language that we use, especially sort of neurophysiology, but some of this. So hopefully this will work.
During the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
Okay, so yeah, so that short video comes from Harvard University at the Center on Developing Child. It's a very good resource. There's a lot of research that comes out of that group. And I thought we'd just share this video just to give you a flavour of that kind of the language we use and just a brief introduction of understanding the kind of the workings of the brain. So we build on that in the course, but it doesn't get too much more complex than that. Okay, right, so unit 2, so this is about self-regulation. So we've got, as I said, so split into these different modules. So module 4 is about child regulation. So we look at self-regulation. Self-regulation is really, I would say, fundamental in terms of understanding the developmental neuroscience of children. So we really do focus on self-regulation as a main part of this course. And we look at self-regulation, we also look at co-regulation. And then with those, we look at the special needs and how that affects self-regulation and co-regulation. And then once we've got that, we move into that nurturing child behaviour. So we look at the stresses on early years, we also look at the adverse childhood experiences, and we kind of bring it together and then finish off with looking at behaviour management. So that touches on, well, brings in all of that information and looks at things like emotion coaching and how to use those, the knowledge in those different modules to manage behaviour in children. Okay, so what I wanted to do, as I said, self-regulation is pretty fundamental in terms of the course. So I just wanted to cover self-regulation very briefly. And here, this slide is talking about the early years foundation stage, which, given there's quite a few people working in early years anyway, I'm sure you're familiar with this. What I don't know if you are aware, so we've got the early learning goals as part of the EYFS. The self-regulation is being formally added to the early learning goals from September 2021. So that has been put forward. I think there's still just, I'm not sure if it's been finalized in terms of the final early learning goals, but it's highly likely it's going to go ahead.
It has been.
Yeah, okay. Right. So yes, self-regulation is going to be very important for anyone who's bound to early years foundation stage regulations. And as it says here, so yeah, so more important than ever for early years practitioners to understand and support self-regulation skills, and they are now one of the key features of effective practice. And if you're aware of a PSED early learning goals, so PSED, it's the
physical, social, and emotional development.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, and I'm sure people on this call will know this better than me. But yeah, so the PSED, that's changing to self-regulation, managing self, and building relationships. And if you're interested in finding out any more, this comes from the Department of Education. There's a report 2020B, and it's on page 12, if you're interested in looking at it in any further detail.
Maybe I should mention, Chris, that you are the human biology expert, and the person who does deal with the early years side is our additional trainer, Yasmin, who can't be here today. So that's why there is a little bit of hesitation when you're talking about those stuff, because that's her expertise, that's what she does. Yeah,
and so I know we moved that trainer slide out, but maybe it's just worth talking about that now. That helps put some context. So yes, so my name is Chris, as you know. So I studied biology and I did quite a bit on neurobiology during my degree. I followed this up with a master's in human nutrition. I'm a registered nutritionist. As well as that, personal trainer, cycling coach, chef, just additional stuff. But I'm quite interested in the brain. I cover some of the courses on sleep at the school as well, with around sleep physiology and how the brain is involved. And I'm also very much interested in how nutrition and the brain and those kind of things work. So that's kind of where I come from, and I cover a lot of the content in the first module, which is much more sort of biology based. And then we've got Yasmin. She's an early years consultant with many years experience in teaching early years content, both as a lecturer at university and also teaching in schools, in secondary schools at the moment. She's got a diploma in nursery nursing and a master's in education and training. And she's also a qualified yoga and mindfulness teacher. And I know that mindfulness and the yoga both allow her to bring a lot of this to her schooling and teaching. She takes Unit 2. She's an expert on all of that self-regulation. Okay, so I'm going to go back to where I was. Okay, so that's done. So in terms of self-regulation, just kind of look at what it is. So quite often people, they misunderstand self-regulation and think about it as self-control. And self-regulation is really quite different to self-control. So self-regulation it's got it here in bold, how effectively and efficiently a child deals with the stress and then recovers. So it's not just about controlling themselves, but it's about managing that stressful situation and recovering from it. And so what we've got here is it's a foundational skill of early childhood. Again, those early years, key, critical to developing that self-regulation. It's the ability to recognize and manage feelings, emotions, and behaviors. And the self-regulation, in terms of that development within the child, it's supported and nurtured by adults through the interactions between the adult and the child. And those secure early attachments, again, are very important in terms of helping to develop that self-regulation. So here we've got some information about why self-regulation is so important. So managing stress, I think I mentioned that just now. So it helps children to cope with strong feelings, provides ability to calm themselves down after getting angry. So again, it's not just about self-control, but it's about managing that stress and the ability to recover from a stressful situation. And stress is a part of life. So we all are able to deal, well, not all, but most people are able to deal with stress. And so that in part is self-regulation. And self-regulation also helps in terms of the learning ability in early years and at school. So self-regulation helps children to sit, listen, pay attention, as well as being able to share and play cooperatively, follow simple instructions in the classroom or earlier setting. So those all contribute to a better learning outcome. So that self-regulation is again important and important again for the early years practitioner to understand this. Furthermore, we've got behaviour in socially acceptable ways. So again, it provides that ability for children to control impulses. And more on that kind of social interaction, we've got making friends. So it allows children to take turns in games, share toys, express emotions in appropriate ways. So those are all very, very important in that social development that is, again, really sort of formative in those first few years. And then finally, it helps children become more independent. So they are able to make good decisions about their behavior. They learn how to behave in new situations and are able to do this more autonomously with less guidance from adults. So those are some of the main points in terms of why self-regulation is important and why we focus on it in this course. That covers all the content I was going to share in terms of the course. We've got the next intakes. September the 4th is the start date of the next course, and then the one after that is going to be in January 2022. There's the link if you want to find out more information about it. One thing which I remember that we haven't included in terms of the course structure. So I talked about the 10 sessions. As well as that, we've got our e-learning platform where we've got the lessons in a guided format, as well as other kind of downloads, useful links, the assignments are there, all that kind of information. So that e-learning platform is your kind of go-to place for anything offline. And as well as that, you've always got support from the trainers, myself and Yasmin. Other than that, that covers the content I was going to share, and I think now it's over to Q&A. So if you guys have got any questions, fire away.
If someone would like to do the course this summer, can do it or need to wait until September? Probably wait. The sessions are recorded on our e-learning platform, but we really see that there is so much more advantage to live session because you share your experience, you meet other students, and we kind of learn from each other. When this happened with the pandemic, we moved all our courses online as our e-learning, and the feedback we got was that it wasn't enough. So then we decided to do the virtual classroom, and it completely changed the learning experience. And we don't want to offer, especially those foundation session, completely kind of without the live session, because it's just, you don't get that, valuable experience that, from just e-learning. So what do the assignments consist of, Chris?
So yeah, so the assignments, there's a mix. They're generally some kind of written assignment. So it might be from like a one-pager explanation of something, or it might be a diagram of something else, or it could be a leaflet or a poster. And we try to form these assignments so not only are they getting you to consolidate your knowledge and demonstrate you understand the content, but some of the assignments are also some things that you might be able to use in your practice as well. So it's a leaflet to a parent about self-regulation or something like that. That's something not only that you do as an assignment, but also you can take away with you.
How much is the course? So the course is £500. It can be paid in installments as well. Any more questions? No. So I hope you guys found it useful. And if you've got any more questions, let us know. Oh, there is another message. Oh, Eva. Thank you so much. My name is Eva. Thank you for that. Was really informative. If you want to take it further after the course, does it tie with any further course? Yeah, there is a level 4. We don't do level 4 yet because we don't have the course just started. So it's quite a new course. So there is a possibility you could move on into level 4, but that would be probably sometimes next year if we've got enough students.
Yeah, but further to that, it's so I think the way NCFE are positioning it, level 2 allows you, it's either there to assist, sort of enhance the knowledge of early years practitioners already, or it's a starting point for various further courses within early years. So it's the level 4 course is an advanced course in neuroscience. But having taken this also opens the gateway for other courses within that NCFE roadmap.
So when will the classes take place? Evening time or weekends? I think
September is Saturday morning. No, Saturday afternoon is 1 o'clock. They're about 2 hours long each.
What is the duration of the course, please? It's a 10 weeks course. You have a year to finish the course. The sessions, as Chris said, are around 2 hours. There are some that are a little bit shorter. There are some a little bit longer. Sometimes the chats and conversation goes off and might stay a bit longer. But the learning part of the course, it's about 1 maximum to 2 hours. The sessions are also recorded on our e-learning platform, so you can go and watch the session there. But again, that session on our e-learning platform is just pre-recorded. It will miss that communication with the other students and those valuable chats and sharing the experience with other students. So we really recommend everyone to try to join as many as possible, but obviously life gets in the way. Sometimes you can't, but if there are any issues or you need a little bit of support, there is always a way to contact our teachers and book one-to-one for some more information. Catherine is asking the length, please, as we said.
Yeah, I think she's already asked in the chat.
Okay, do apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, Catherine is saying thank you. Okay, so if there are any more questions, then we're closed for today. Thank you very much for coming and watching this session. As I said earlier, yeah, it's gonna get cooler. And yeah, hopefully we see you on the course or on our other courses. If you've got any more questions, please email us at info@childcarestudies.co.uk. Okay, have a nice rest of the evening. Take care. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.